I have a time of 9 a.m. and I would like to call the meeting to order. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim, can we get the verification of the legal notice?
All matters on the agenda have been properly served.
And
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept and adopt the 2 consent agenda items.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 And that was for both. Okay. We have citizens input, which is any person may speak for 3 minutes about any subject of concern, provided that it is within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission and it is not already on today's agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing. Total time allotted for citizens input shall be 15 minutes. Speakers are requested to complete a simple form giving name, address, and subject available in the Community Development Department office prior to 9 a.m. Agendas of public meeting and supporting documents are available for public inspection in the Lake County Courthouse, Community Development Department, 3rd floor, 255 North Forbes Street, Lakeport, California. Request for disability-related modifications or accommodation. A request for disability-related modification or accommodation necessary to participate in the Planning Commission meeting should be made in writing for the Planning Commission Secretary at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. So if anybody wishes to speak, please come to the mic up front and fill out your name on the sheet. Other than that, we will, yes.
That's about items that are not on the agenda?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And other than that, we will begin our first item at 9:05. It is 9:02. And can you guys hear me all right, or should I speak a little bit closer? Okay.
We can hear you okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I am showing a time of 9:05. But first, before we begin, we'd like to thank the city of Lakeport for allowing us to use this room. So thank you. And this is the public hearing, consideration of request for approval to explore 6 well sites for testing to determine the quality and the quality and quantity of water for each location for purpose of future municipal use, GPC 22-07 for a general conformity plan. Applicant County of Lake / Spring Valley Lake County Service Area. 21 project location 1490, 1710, 1480, 1470, 1460, 1410 Long Valley Road, Clear Lake Oaks, APNs 062-701-27, 620-131-05, 620-131-08, 620-131-09, and 620-611-03.
Good morning, planning commissioners. This is a general plan conformity project in Spring
Laura?
Valley.
Would you speak into the microphone?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Getting better.
Better. This is a general plan conformity for Spring Valley Lake CSA 2 water supply improvement.
Hold on a second, Laura. I don't know that mic is on.
Hello,
On it, just.
Can you get it a little closer?
can you hear me now?
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
sorry about that. This is GPC 2207 CE 2230. Next slide, please. The project is located in Spring Valley. And I would like to point out there is going to be an amendment since the legal notice went out. 2 of the parcels have been pulled from the list of the 7. And those parcels are 620-13108 and 620-13105. Next slide, please. The parcels, it's a bit hard to see from here, but one of the parcels is located up to the north and the other 5 are located down below. But again, 2 of those parcels have been pulled. Next slide, please. Under Government Code 65402A, whenever the county sells, buys, or constructs on property, it has a general plan of conformity has to be reported to the government agency, and that's what we're doing here today. Next slide. The project details are Spring Valley, California service area has identified 6 potential well sites, now 4 sites. The district is proposing the exploration of the sites to test and determine the quantity and quantity of water for each location. Once the well site is identified, the parcel will be acquired and a well will be constructed for a redundant water source. The proposed project will ensure the redundancy of water during drought emergencies for a Spring Valley community. The project will provide drought resilience in a small isolated community which is prone to wildfires. Next slide, please. And these are the site photos that were taken during a site visit on August 26, 2022. The 2 parcels that have been removed, those photos are included here. But again, those 2 parcels have been removed. Next slide. The general plan of conformity determination was made, and we looked at Lake County General Code or General Plan, Chapter 5, Public Facilities and Services. Goal PFS2 to ensure the provision of an affordable, sustainable, reliable, safe, and adequate water supply with distribution and storage facilities to meet existing and future needs of the county. We looked at policy PSF 2.3, proposals for increased density. The county shall, through the area plan process, designate the locations and densities of urban and suburban land uses in a manner that maximizes the use of existing water infrastructure before relying on system expansions. Our response to that conformity is that several area plans have been completed for different communities around Lake County, but Spring Valley does not have one. The purpose of the proposed project is to increase backup drinking water capacity for the Spring Valley Lake County Service Area 2, CS2 community. The additional increased storage capacity is intended to ensure that the community has redundant water supply, ensuring the protection of health, safety, and the environment during drought and wildfire seasons. The CSA2 community is recognized as a disadvantaged community with a population of approximately 1,100 and 495 water connections. DCs are given priority when it comes to project funding needs with the State Department of Water Resources, as they are likely to experience and have inadequate resources. Next slide, please. We then looked at gold, the WR1, to provide for the current and long-range water needs of the county and for the protection of the quality and quantity of groundwater resources. And then looked at policy WR 1.2, sustainable groundwater withdrawal. The county shall manage groundwater resources within its jurisdiction through ordinances, project approvals, and agreements to ensure an adequate, safe, sustainable, and economically viable groundwater supply for existing future use within the county. In order to maintain and enhance the natural environment, protect existing groundwater users, the overall economy of the county, and groundwater and surface water quality and quantity in a manner consistent with existing law and doctrine of safe yield within the groundwater basins of the county. Next slide, please. Our response was there are 12 known groundwater basins in Lake County, of which Spring Valley is not included. However, Special Districts manages 5 water systems, including CSA 13, Akonotei, CSA 2, Spring Valley, CSA 20, Soda Bay, CSA 21, North Lakeport, and Kelseyville County Water Works District 3, including CSA number 6, Finley and Lands End. Due to the current drought conditions, Special Districts is implementing its drought management plan and beginning with a stage 1 response for all of our customers. All customers in the 5 water system managed by Special Districts are being asked to voluntarily conserve and reduce usage by 20% to avoid a critical reduction in storage reserves that could require mandatory water rationing this summer. Also, compliance with mandatory water, also compliance with any state mandated conservation actions are required at this time as well. Our secret review concluded that the proposed project is exempt from under the California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Chapter 3, Section 15269C, specific actions necessary to prevent or mitigate an emergency. Based on the emergency drought proclamations declared by Governor Gavin Newsom, signed into effect April 12, 2021, May 10, 2021, July 8, 2021, October 19, 2021, and the most recent March 28, 2022. Some additional points to consider: the reason for the exemption on all those dates. Governor Gavin Newsom proclaimed states of emergency to exist throughout California due to severe drought conditions. The proclamation states the increase in frequency, multi-year droughts presents a significant risk to California's ability to ensure adequate water supplies for communities. The proclamation goes on to state that it is necessary to expeditiously mitigate the effects of the drought conditions to ensure that the protection of health, safety, and environment. 3 operative orders of the proclamation apply to this project. Operative paragraphs 2, 6, 7, and 12 would be appropriately applied to this project. Paragraph 2 states the orders and provisions contained in the April 21st, May 10th, and July 8th proclamations remain in full force and effect. State agencies shall continue to implement all direction from those proclamations and accelerate implementation where feasible. Next slide, please. Paragraph 6 states, as necessary to assist local governments for the protection of public health and the environment, state agencies shall enter into contracts to arrange for the procurement of materials, goods, and services necessary to quickly assist with the response to and recovery for the impacts of the drought. Paragraph 7 states, to proactively prevent situations where a community runs out of drinking water, the Water Board, the Department of Water Resources, the Office of Emergency Services, and the Office of Planning Research shall assist local agencies with identifying acute drinking water shortages in domestic water supplies and shall work with local agencies in implementing solutions to those water shortages. Paragraph 12 states, for purposes of carrying out or approving any actions contemplated by the directives in order operatives, paragraphs 5, 6, and 9, the environmental review by state agencies shall be the California Environmental Quality Act in Public Resources Code Division 13, commencing with section 21.000, and regulations adopted pursuant to that division are hereby suspended to the extent necessary to address the impacts of the drought. Next slide, please. A request for review was sent out to the various agencies and stakeholders on June 20th, 22, and the AB 52 tribal consultation notification was also inadvertently sent out on June 20th, 2022. Due to the emergency status of the project was not subject to tribal consultation, and email was sent out to the tribes regarding the situation. Following posting of the legal notice for this project, Special District received phone calls from 2 separate landowners requesting removal of their parcels from the project list. The parcels are APN 620-131-08 and 620-131-05. There were no adverse comments received from agencies or other stakeholders. Recommendations. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the following action. The Planning Commission, after reviewing the agenda report as amended and receiving evidence at the public meeting, finds that the location, purpose, and extent of the proposed groundwater well to be located on one of the following parcels at 1490, 1710, 1470, and 1410 on New Long Valley Road in Clear Lake Oaks, California, 95423, is in conformance with the County of Lake General Plan pursuant to California Government Code Section 65402. Next slide, please. Sample motion, categorical exemption approval. A, I move that the Planning Commission finds that, okay. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Laura. Do we have any comments or
One very brief edit. The staff report refers to Supervisor District 1 and it's Supervisor District 5. And then secondly, Laura, is one of the 2 properties referred to as being removed, the Gustafson-Wellman property? We received a green sheet about that.
No, I am not sure. Our special districts are supposed to be here today to answer any questions, so I'm not sure.
Okay. It would be helpful to know if that's one of the properties. Is one of the properties requested to be removed, the Gustafson's Wellman property? They sent in a comment and we received a green sheet about that.
Yes.
Thank you.
if there's no I will open public comment. So if anybody wishes to speak, please come up to the podium. And be sure to state your first and last name.
My name's Tim Sherrill. Speaking on behalf of myself and my wife. I think we're in District 3, not District 1. I'm not sure. But
It's Supervisor Pyska's district.
no,
Yeah, that should be District 5, not 1.
it's Supervisor Crandall's district.
So it should
I
be.
believe.
Also, the
Correct.
reference is completely, it needs to be changed on the staff report, and it's not District 1 or 5.
It's 3.
Yeah, I don't think Spring Valley's in my district.
We live in the area proposed for well testing, and we just received notice of this hearing last week. The notice indicated that agencies and stakeholders were sent a request for review on June 20th. That wasn't sent to us. 5 of the 6 proposed sites are in our neighborhood. 1 site borders residential properties, including ours. We have concerns about how construction and operation of a well so close to homes would affect local wildlife, aquatic life, and the neighborhood. We'd like to know how and why these properties were chosen. We believe there are other sites that would be more efficient and less disruptive to the natural and human environment. At this point, we have very little information about the details of the operation. That makes it difficult for us to consider the proposal. We're concerned about the potential pollution of water, noise nuisance, potential effects of a flood, right-of-way issues, transportation and distribution issues, and future costs. The sites near Pomo Trail are about 2 miles from the existing water plant. We don't know how the water will be transported to the facility. If trucks are used, that would be expensive, a noise nuisance, damaging to our roads, and potentially dangerous. Our community's private roads are barely wide enough for two-way traffic as it is. They also don't have any sidewalks for pedestrians. We think there are other options which would be less costly and less intrusive to residents. The county owns the campground and expansive properties surrounding the campground. These are adjacent to the treatment plant. Those sites seem more appropriate in terms of less impact on residents' lives, the environment, and less expensive. There's also a grant in place to dredge Spring Valley Lake to increase our water resources. We wonder about the status of that project and whether that would be a better resource for backup water and fire protection. The lake's drainage runs right by the treatment plant. We understand that this project is exempt due to the emergency drought proclamations. However, without an environmental impact report, we have serious questions about whether this proposal complies with the general plan in terms of safety, sustainability, economic viability, and efficiency. While much of Spring Valley is in a floodplain, the proposed sites near Pomo Trail are at a lower elevation and more at risk than other locations. We're concerned about the potential ramifications of a flood affecting the proposed well and surrounding areas. We're also concerned about the right-of-way proposals and how that affects our properties and privacy. Other sites already owned by the county would not have such issues. That would facilitate a smoother process for the county with less objections and potential for litigation. How will the selected properties be acquired? Do property owners have a right to refuse? For the record, we do not want anyone on our property for any purpose related to this. We'd like to request a continuance of this matter, even though this is an emergency exemption. We hope the Planning Commission will take our concerns into account and postpone a decision about this request from special districts. It seems to us that the whole process is being fast-tracked with less than optimal transparency. Thanks for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patty Voss. I am speaking here for my mother. In the staff report, my mom's property was listed, 1480 APN 620-130-131-050. My mom has owned the property since 1977. Our property is not part of the Spring Valley subdivision. The actual valley is not called Spring Valley. It is actually Long Valley. Spring Valley, the subdivision is a little piece of property that's inside the valley. Some of the objections we have is, as a stakeholder and property owner, she was not notified at any prior meetings. The June one, we had no idea. Again, our property is not part of the Spring Valley subdivision. It's generational property. Any drilling for groundwater will compromise my only source of water. There would be property damage, loss of property, or water use for residents, and endanger possibly existing habitat, wildlife, or plants. I sent an email to Scott Harder. Laura Hall was included, Myra Turner, Scott Hornan, Yolanda Garave, and also my mother. And this is the contents of the email. Scott Harder, this email is a response to the first notification that we received on September 14th of the intent of Lake County Commission to test for quality and quantity of water on our property. LC Voss and heirs, who are stakeholders and property owners directly affected by the proposal and the public hearing being held on today, are requesting that our property be removed from the list. The property that we're requesting removal is APN 620-131-050-000 and also known as property 1480. Again, we are requesting that our property be removed from the list. Do not give permission for testing of water and do not give permission for any access on our property by any representative sent by you or anyone. We are also requesting time to consult with a water's rights attorney. I received a response from Scott Harder. It is as follows. Ms. Voss, please find this email as acknowledgement of your request to be removed from the project. We'll comply with that request and not seek further to test for quality or quantity of the water or any activity on your property in conjunction with the project. So I want to say thank you to Scott Harder, but I wanted to make sure that this email was entered into the minutes and becomes part of the legal thing. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Marty Deesman. I'm a resident of Spring Valley. I want to just express my concerns. Our notice of this project is incredibly short. I mean, I just found out about it maybe 10 days ago. I mean, it hardly gives us any time for consideration of the impact on our neighborhoods in Spring Valley. Concerns of mine are, I did see the map of where the proposed drilling is going to occur. I'm not aware of any kind of EPA or I don't know what standards are being held here. And considering the impact in our area, one of my great concerns is the impact on the water table that we're going to have in our area. I mean, one of the items that are proposed in the document is because of the drought and the impact on local, on the residents. Well, it seems mainly it's drinking water, but also it identifies, the trees and stuff like that. But I don't know the impact of drilling and drawing from our water table is going to have on our environment. It's mentioned that this is part of the fire hazard. I don't know what the word is, but addressing the mitigation. Thank you. Yeah, the mitigation. But if we lower our water table, that's going to put even more stress on our trees there. It could possibly actually increase our danger because of the trees are struggling already. If we lose our water table, then it's going to get worse, more disease and drier trees, and it'll be worse for us. There's no mention in the paperwork that I saw of how the water is going to be redirected. And I'm assuming it's going to our water plant there in Spring Valley, but that wasn't that clear to me. But we don't really know how it's going to get there. So I'm really concerned that is there going to be an EPA research into this on impact?
If I could just add a little bit, community development is not lead agency on the project itself. That's the special district's administration. Whenever a public agency is considering moving forward with a project, that's when we get involved because we have to establish, or we have to present to you findings to establish that the proposed project is actually in conformance with the general plan. So we would defer all details of the project to special districts. Staff is here today. However, what's before the commissioners is not the project itself. It's rather whether or not this proposed project will be in conformance with the general plan.
And this project is just testing. Am I
correct? This is
but this is part of the challenge here because we've had such short notice on this. I mean, it was quite a surprise. And so within the body of the paperwork that I saw, there wasn't any declaration of what the process was going to be like.
Mhm.
We didn't really, other than this meeting, we didn't know the kind of input we could really have, and if there was any way that our input would have any impact on the development of this project. I'm sure that all of us in Spring Valley are aware of the conditions in Spring Valley, and my wife and I are part of the Firewise group, and when we do a lot of volunteering, just clearing properties and stuff like that, we're very involved. But with something like this, I mean, this is beyond our scope of awareness and really, quite frankly, beyond our scope of knowledge, and we haven't been given enough time to really take in what's going to happen here and do our own due diligence and research. So it would be really
I think
nice.
the point that Director Turner was making was that there will be time for that. And that involves the special district's oversight of any potential project. And the only thing we are being asked to consider today is whether this proposed project does conform with the general plan. We're not taking a position
Okay.
on the merits of the project in any way.
And
Just
how
FYI.
are the residents in Spring Valley going to be kept up to date with the process and how we can become involved?
Perhaps it might be helpful if special districts could speak to the timeline going forward on that project.
Okay.
That could be.
If I may, commissioners, for public notice, there are certain requirements for people who own property within a certain distance of a project. Those people will receive direct notice. There are processes for which the public can request notice for projects through community development. Keep in mind, those are projects that come before the Planning Commission, not necessarily projects that are heard somewhere else. But if it were to come back before the Planning Commission, then you can request to receive notice for that. through
Okay, so what would be
development.
helpful would be, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
And so there, and then of course, there is a notice process for all planning commission meetings. There will be, if an item is continued, say, for example, the commission needs more time or has determined that they need more information, then you would hear that you would receive notice of that continuation today. So there are certain steps to receive notice. If you would like to receive notice, my understanding is that community development does in fact have a process by which you can request notice through their office.
Okay, so is there a document that outlines procedure in processes like this? I mean, for us, this is not what we do. This is what you do. So you're familiar with your procedures and your processes. We're not. So when we get letters like this in the mail, that comes as a surprise, and we're not. I mean, I can't speak for everybody in the audience right now, but for me, not being an expert in this sort of thing, there's no way for me to anticipate coming steps, which I would really like to be able to do. And it would seem fair to the residents to be able to look into the future so we can be prepared for future get-togethers like this.
Certainly. I think Mr. Diesman makes a very good point. A lot of the residents today or who responded after we did send out our notification were able to do so because of our notification procedures. But if I understand you correctly, you might be referring to the project going forward and staying involved in that side of it rather than because I don't know that it'll come back to the Planning Commission necessarily. But so that's why I think it would be great for special districts maybe just to take the opportunity to address both all the residents that are here as well as residents or stakeholders that might be watching the meeting in order to sort of have just a general understanding of how the project will move forward. Is that addressing your concern?
My concern is, process and procedure and how we can keep track of what's going on. So there aren't any, for us, well, for me, to speak for myself, this came as a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been living in Spring Valley for about 3 years. And I still live in Spring Valley because I really like living there. It's a really nice place to live in. And so something like this has the potential for really changing things. I mean, I'm personally not on a well. I wonder if there are many people who are on a well there. If that drilling occurs, what is going to do to their wells? Are they are they going to be forced into getting their water another way?
Sir, those are
There's a number of
legitimate
issues there.
questions, but none of those things are what we are considering here today. We're not a policymaking body. We are simply agreeing or not that this conforms with the general plan. That's
Right.
all
Okay,
we can't speak to anything beyond that.
all right,
today.
but I am sharing
And you're
my
doing it
feeling,
well. Your point is
and
well.
I think that others in the audience probably have similar feelings.
Of course.
Okay, that was it. So thank you.
Please just make sure to sign your name on the sheet up there. And if anybody missed that, if you decide to come up again,
Do I put that I live in Spring Valley?
sure, yes.
We just want to make sure we spell your name correctly in the minutes.
Okay.
And I would like to hear more of the residents of Spring Valley to address their concerns before like that special districts can get a chance to get all the questions out of the way instead of having, like back and forth. So if anybody else would like to speak on the matter, please. And be sure to state your first and last name and to write.
My name's Dan Ori.
Thank you.
I've lived in Clear Lake Oaks for 60 years. I was an electrical contractor. I wired the first house out in Spring Valley that was ever built there. We have never had a water problem in Spring Valley. And this statement says this is going to benefit the community of Spring Valley. Is everybody that's involved in this willing to sign a statement that not one drop of that water will leave the valley? That's what I'd like to know.
Good question.
Because in the way this is written, it says it's for the Spring Valley residents for a drought. I'll guarantee you they're going to start trucking that water out of there as fast as they can truck it once these wells are in. And that if you people that are involved in this aren't willing to sign a statement saying that water, one drop of it will not leave that valley, then this shouldn't be allowed, period. So the community out there is a separate community. It's beautiful. I was there when the lake was just usable. It was sandy beach. The lake was beautiful. They haven't done a damn thing out there as far as the county is going, as far as to redo the lake. The creek runs out there year round. I don't care what kind of drought you got. Right now, you can go out there. The creek's running right by the water plant. I don't understand why they want to drill where they want to drill. They want to drill out where they want to drill is because they don't want to have to drive the tanker trucks all the way into the valley. They'll just get it from there. Won't disturb the residents, but it is going to disturb the residents because the road is too narrow as it is. So that's the reason they want to do it. I don't understand why they want it so far from the water plant. There's a trick going on there, and that's the trick. The county is trying to pull some bull that ain't going to go because the people out there are going to fight this till the end. It's not right. If that water's for us, we don't have a water shortage. Like I say, the creek runs. You can stand where the creek's running and see the water plant. And it runs year round. And they're drilling 2 miles away from the water plant. Doesn't make any sense. They're trying to pull something on the residents out there. And believe me, it ain't going to go. And I hope everybody sees it. I think a 60-year resident of Lake County be able to say what he wants to say.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else in chambers that would like to speak? Do we have anybody on Zoom? Jim? All right, I think if Special District is here to answer some of the questions. Yeah, okay, so I'll be closing public comment. Can we get a representative from Special Districts? Yes, please.
My name is Scott Hornung. I'm the Deputy Administrator for Special Districts. This project, it was simply a resiliency project. It's from a resiliency grant to provide a backup water source in case something, heaven forbid, happens to Indian Valley Reservoir or Yolo County Flood Control District decides that they can't, that we can't draw our water from their source out of Cache Creek. The reason is down at the south end is because that's where there's been two studies that were performed in 2008 and 2009 that was looking at possibilities for backup water wells. And those were the areas down in that area that provided the best opportunity and the best yield. And that's why they're located there. It only has to be close to the water main line itself. It doesn't have to be anywhere close to the actual treatment plant because we're not treating it like we do the surface water. It would simply be maybe a 50 by 50 lot. It would be fenced. There'd be a house there. The pump house that would hold the well and the pump. And then that water would be, there would be a chlorine injection into it, and then it would get pumped into the water main. Now it's into the system, and it doesn't have to go to the treatment plant because it's not surface water. It doesn't have to go through the sand filters. Every drop of that water that comes out of there will only go to the Spring Valley subdivision. It's not going to get trucked out anywhere. It's simply a backup source in case something happens to the Yolo County source at Indian Valley Reservoir. There would be no noise associated with it. If you have a well at your house, when the well pump kicks on, there's a little hum maybe, because it would be housed within a building that stop that noise from happening. And we would be far enough away from anyone's house. There are some parcels out there that Special Districts owns, and obviously those are going to be the ones that we're going to investigate first. But if we don't find anything there, then that's why we're reaching out to some of those other people. So that's kind of the best that I can do to try to help answer any of those questions that they have.
The other was one other concern that came up, so I'm glad that you stated that the water was only going to Spring Valley residents. Only the other one of the questions that came up was if how were these properties chosen? And
They were chosen simply on the location southward there. Like I said, there were those two tests that were done by CH2M Hill and another engineering firm. And they did a 72-hour pump down on one of the wells and compared the well levels in, I think, 17 wells surrounding that test one that they did, as well as the springs that are off of Old Long Valley Road. And there seemed to be no impact in them over that 72-hour pumping period, where they were doing about 91 gallons per minute for 72 hours. The well recovered. So that's why we were trying to locate those in that southern portion. And it was within the distribution system. The pipes are going through there, so it would be easy to connect the well into the system.
thank you. Any other questions from?
My only question at this point is, there's been a lot of concern voiced about the noticing of the meeting and discussion of the issue. And Nicole, you stated that there are some policies. What are those policies? What is the notification time frame? 10 days?
Well, there are notice requirements for hearings. There are notice requirements, I think, for general plan conformity. You would have to ask staff the process they went through for notification. There are certain actions that require notice of people within a specific distance. However, usually that relates to the actual project and not necessarily a general plan of conformity. Here you're being asked to determine whether or not the project, should it eventually be approved, is in conformance with the general plan. The actual project itself will be reviewed at a later time, I think, by the Board of Supervisors and not by your commission. So that will also be noticed per those rules and regulations. Plus the Planning Commission meetings have their own notice requirements as far as posting and making the information available to the public for when the hearing will be held and what will be discussed, generally speaking, in the meeting.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
We follow the government code, the California government code regarding public hearing notices. If a property or if a project site is less than 5 acres, we notify all property owners that are within a 250 foot radius. Somebody needs to get muted over there. If the project is larger than 5 acres, it expands to a 700-foot radius. One thing that's important to note that sometimes gets missed is that the notification goes to the property owner, not necessarily the resident.
Right.
We pull the addresses from the auditor's office for property owners. And so we also post it in the newspaper. So it goes out in the record B. We've also started sending it over to Lake County News so it can go out that way. And if a property, if there is a public hearing that's going to affect more than 1,000 properties, then we don't do a direct mailing. We actually do a larger newspaper. It becomes a 1/8 page ad in the local paper of record.
Wow.
So,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Anything else?
Did you want to see? Do you have any follow-up questions after here?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would like to open public comment again to see if anybody had any of their questions answered or any questions that perhaps didn't get answered that you would like to hear the answer to. Please.
I forgot to sign when I came up earlier, but I also want to restate that Patty Voss, I'm here with my mom, Elsie Voss. She is a property owner, received notice 8 days before this hearing. So no, we do not believe that we had proper notice. There was no, we don't receive the record B. It's now in Ukiah. It doesn't have some local news, so we no longer subscribe to it. We did not see it on Lake County News. We did not see it in any newspaper at all. So we feel that we did not receive any kind of proper notification. And also I want to hear where I believe you said that our property was removed 1480. I want to make sure that it is part of public record and part of the minutes. And then also we keep hearing that it's Spring Valley. It is Long Valley where the valley is. Spring Valley is a subdivision that is located inside Spring Valley. It is not Spring Valley. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the explanation from special districts. I'm still concerned and curious about how the property be acquired and if property owners have any rights or choices about that. Also, I don't know if the well will be on land or in the creek. And again, the creek near us is very low and prone to floods. So I'd like those questions addressed, please.
Martin D. Smith again. Is it appropriate for me to ask Scott? Is that your name? Can I ask him?
You
a
would
question?
present your question to the chair. and
Okay.
then-
Well, I was confused by one thing that he said. It sounded like if and when this occurs, that the water would not be directed to the treatment plant. Did I hear that correctly? And I'm wondering why not, why the water would not be processed and how that water would be used by us as the consumer. The other thing I'm wondering is the time frame for all of this as this project matures. What can we look forward to in terms of each of these steps going forward?
Thank you.
I don't mean to sound flip, but we don't have those answers. That's not the task here before us today. It's just the four corners of the GPC,
Yeah,
general plan conformance.
It becomes really-
Those are perfectly legitimate questions, but we're not trying to stonewall you. We just simply we're not the proper body to answer those questions.
yeah, if I can comment, these are all really good questions. And I'm glad to have some of them answered. But my understanding is we're just trying to figure out whether it conforms with the general plan to do this. We're not doing all this analysis that should be done eventually.
Right.
So, thank you.
If there are no further comments, there's none on the Zoom.
I don't have any hands raised.
Okay, I will be closing public comment. And special districts, if you guys would like to answer those questions.
Scott Horning, Deputy Administrator for Special Districts. The well will definitely be outside of the floodplain. It won't be down in the creek. It'll be in a spot that's appropriate and outside of the floodplain. Well water typically is just it's pumped out. You inject chlorine into it to get rid of any of the microbes, and then it goes into the system. The water that comes out of the creek has to go through. It's got bacteria, it's got algae, it's got all sorts of organics in it that have to be filtered out. So they have to go into the treatment plant, get hit with chlorine to oxidize it, then go through the sand filters to filter out everything, and then it goes through a clear well to get.
Hey, Scott, if you could speak into the mic, that way
Sorry.
we'll get you on the recording.
Should I start over?
Keep going.
Okay. So there isn't a need to filter the water that's coming out of the well. So long as it has the no bad constituents in it and it's appropriate to be a municipal water well, you're simply adding chlorine to it and then putting it into the system. It doesn't need to go to the treatment plant to be treated.
Thank you. So I will bring this back to the commission for motion or discussion, if there's any further discussion that needs.
I would just like to acknowledge the public's comments and concerns. And if I were in your chairs, I would have the very same questions. Those deserve answers, and there's a process for that. But again, as a commissioner, everything I've read in the report and heard today, I have to agree that it does conform with the general plan, and I would be voting accordingly.
I move that the planning commission finds that the analysis of consistency of groundwater well project is in conformity with the Lake County General Plan, is not subject to CEQA because it falls within California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Chapter 3, Section 15269C, based on the emergency drought proclamations declared by Governor Gavin Newsom, signed into effect April 12th, 2021, May 10th, 2021, July 8th, 2021, October 19th, 2021, and March 28th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I further move that the planning commission finds that as proposed by special districts, the proposed groundwater well project is in conformity with the Lake County General Plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Let's see. The note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7 calendar day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the planning commission's recommendations, an appeal to the board of supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fees must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th calendar day following the commission's final determination. The second item, public hearing, consideration of extension use permit UPM 22-01 of use permit UP 03-04 and a categorical exemption CE 22-36 for operating of existing mine, applicant DNA Rich Rock LLC, project location 8359 and 8400 South Highway 29, Lower Lake, APNs 011-069-13 and 12. And for this item, we do have a request of for continuance to a date uncertain. If there's any
Thank you. Yeah, after the posting of the agenda, we became aware of an error in the staff report that required correction. So if it's acceptable to the commission, we'd like to advance this to our next meeting.
Can I get a motion?
So
That
moved.
would be October 13th, I believe.
Mhm.
Yeah, so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Our third item, thank you, Eric. Our third item, public hearing, consideration of proposed major use permit UP 20-61 to create 13 A-type 3 medium outdoor cannabis cultivation license and 2 A-type 4 nursery licenses and draft mitigated negative declaration based on initial study IS 20-62. Applicant Pura Vineyards LLC, project location 7530 and 7590 State Highway 29 and 6700, 6800 and 6900 Wilkinson Road, Kelseyville, APN 007-029-04, 007-2905, 007-018-02, 007-018-04, and 007-018-11.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Byron Turner here presenting this use permit application. Are you able to see my presentation?
It's not on the screen yet.
Not on the screen.
I can see your PowerPoint on the screen share from this end, Byron.
Okay.
You guys can't see it in the room.
No.
Does the room have the capability to see it, or should I continue without?
It's not
Can
up
you
on our
stop screen sharing so I can get the other presentation off there?
Yeah, there you go.
You. Okay, try screen sharing now.
It is telling me that participants can now see my screen.
I guess we're not participants.
Let me try one more thing. Hang on a second. How about now?
Nope, still no.
I'm wondering if we can pull it up on our computers.
We log into the
We have to make it available to the public.
Well, it is online, isn't it?
Can you stop sharing again? I gotta figure this out. I gotta get this off there.
If you wouldn't mind a quick break,
Yep.
we can work on our tech.
We will do it is 9:58. We will have a 5-minute break and meet back here.
Did I hear a puppy barking?
Yeah, earlier.
I thought it was either feet on a floor.
The walls here are thin, and they go right outside, so sometimes you can hear the cats meowing outside. Yeah, we're
No question about it. It's one of the most important duties.
Although she's eaten every single garden, she's chewed through every single garden hose. Not, it's like it tests my, strength.
Right.
Stress. I run into lots of those things that test strength and stress every day. Yeah, I think that it's right up there with harvesting your entire year's income in 17 days.
It's daunting.
Yeah. My mother and I make wine and we do it every,
Oh, do you?
yeah, well, I make mead, she makes port.
Have you talked to Maria about this?
I make wine too.
Do you?
I haven't for a few years. Yeah.
No, we have a winery.
You're
And I'm
kidding.
I'm trying to get my labels approved.
You are my new best
Really?
Hey,
friend.
Byron,
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
TTV's.
it's up there now.
Yeah, they're all weird now.
So
Okay.
You can find it.
I don't know if you have to control, if you can control it from there.
That sounds really,
I will hear about.
Yeah.
So Byron just said that he
But
sent
I
it to
understand the
Andrew
feeling.
yesterday
Not
and
quite
thought
a
Andrew
full
was going
year's
to put
worth,
it on the
but-
thumb drive. Can
Well,
you
it sounds,
get
You
email?
do, we're very small scale.
it sounds like
so
you can see it now. I've been
Great.
told you can see it now.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter. You,
There it is.
you sweat bullets when you've got 40 gallons is a lot of bottles.
Okay.
And
That's
you know,
fine.
you mess up
Well, if
the
Byron
tank
can't
and
control it,
you
then you
just,
can just do it.
it's not what I wanted. It's not, it's a funny taste. You're just so upset.
it's an art.
Yeah.
It really is.
Trash truck? Cement truck? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was, yeah, I thought it was like an air thing or something, but. I didn't think that the.
Well, since we still, well, if they're redoing some of the roads or something, then it's pretty loud.
Is it? That sounds like it's right next to the walls.
It could be right there.
That's
outside.
Oh, I see, okay.
There's a,
It's like a divot. Oh.
Can't get it to go back to where it was.
Oh, there it is.
that's what I wake up to on Fridays.
Trash collection.
Evidently, I don't.
I wait, it wakes me up
They start early.
grinding through the hillsides I live in. And then I usually wake up going, God, I forgot. So, and then I do the cost benefit analysis of getting out of bed or just waiting until next weekend. Okay. You're aware. Someone can put it into the, well, I don't know if it would be officially part of a transcript if we.
I've put it in transcripts before. When I used to do it down in the board's office.
Because technically, I mean, it's not part of the hearing.
I put it all in there.
It all goes.
If I could hear it, I wrote it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, official transcripts for like, for example, a secret challenge, or something, I'm wondering if they would transcribe that.
We're not professionals.
Start slideshow, right?
I mean, they would, the person who transcribes it would do the whole recording. There'd be an argument whether or not it's relevant. Because
I guess you'll just have.
So I don't know if he can.
I don't know. I haven't run into that yet.
You're controlling.
There was when I get those.
Yes. Rome was not built in a day.
He kind of anticipated, that's why he sent me the power.
Sadly, I
Yeah,
don't
yes,
know.
it's like that.
I
It's
wish that was.
Yeah, I don't know.
When did it be nice?
Actually, you know what? I don't know. Second thought.
Mhm.
Because if you.
So are you guys seeing, are you seeing me scroll through it right now?
Yes.
Okay,
No.
good. No?
I only see the first slide.
No,
Let him know. We can just let us know when to click to the. next.
Byron, we
Happened on
can't
the
click-
last PowerPoint on the Zoom as well.
You're gonna have to let me know when to click to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we needed a 10.
All right, I'm showing a time of 10:03, and we will continue our third item. I think I already read the. Yeah. So please continue with your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. This is for Pure Vineyards Use Permit 20-61 and Initial Study 20-61. I'm moving to, well, slide 2, please.
Okay, I'm on slide 2.
Please don't bother me.
This is interesting. No, I'm no longer able to control it either. Are you on slide 2?
I'm on the slide 2.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna walk you through what this permit request is, the project scope, description of the site, analysis and recommendation. Slide 3, please. The request consists of 13 acres of outdoor canopy that results in 13 type 3 outdoor licenses. It's gonna approximately 15 acres of vineyard will be removed to accommodate this project. In addition, there is 40,000 square feet of immature canopy that does not get counted in the license type per the state regulations. Slide 4. The property is zoned rural lands. It is outside of the Highway 29 scenic corridor. Slide 5, please. The vicinity is zoned predominantly rural lands, although there are various other zonings surrounding the general area. Slide 6, please. There are 3 distinct cultivation areas, all existing of about 20 to 24 vineyard blocks, along with associated sheds and barns. Next slide. This is a slide of the schematic of the barns and the refrigeration units that are also described in the green sheet that you should have been provided today. I will go into those refrigeration units a little further later in the presentation. The water usage consists of 2 wells. There is a drought management plan that is associated with this project. Slide 8. The hours and deliveries are all within as required by county code. Slide 9 depicts access from Wilkinson Road. The project is within the Kelsey Creek watershed. If you move on to slide 10, staff did review the project for consistency with the general plan, the Kelseyville area plan, the zoning ordinance, and state regulations. You can kind of jump through 11, 12, and 13. The project does not conflict with the general plan, the Kelseyville area plan, or the zoning ordinance. And slide 14 does not conflict with the rural lands designation, which allows for this type of use with the use permit. You'll see, if it's the correct slide, because I cannot see the slides, on the upper left of the site plan, the refrigerated Conex box containers. I wanted to point out that these refrigerated containers were analyzed as part of the initial study. The green sheet describes those containers in the use. The idea is to keep some refrigeration on site in order to maximize the site's potential and keep traffic off the roads and keep as much in county as possible. Also, with regard to the CEQA analysis, the power usage and the greenhouse gas emissions were analyzed in the initial study as part of the analysis. Slide 15, the mitigated native declaration was prepared and circulated for this project from July 26th to August 24th, 2022. There were some comment letters, one from the water board regarding the requirement of drinking water permits if they hit a certain threshold with employees. A letter from the DTSC, Department of Toxic Substance Control, identifying that there is a geothermal waste deposit near the property. It just was more of a notification, wanted to make sure that it was kept clear and that any easements that this project shared with that did not conflict, and wanted to ensure that it was not disturbed. There's also a letter from the Regional Water Quality Control Board stating the requirements regarding groundwater and surface water. So slide 16 should indicate the various sections of the initial study that require mitigation, and those mitigation measures are going to be attached to your staff report. Slides 17 and 18 is staff recommendations that you approve the and adopt the mitigated native declaration and approve the project subject to conditions of approval. I am available for questions, and there is a representatives from the applicant team on Zoom and I believe in the building as well.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Or would you like to hear from the applicants?
I do have one quick question. In the agency comments, there was a couple of different letters from DTSC. One was rescinded and then there was one at a later date. Have those concerns been addressed?
Yes, is this mic on?
Yes.
Yes, this is Andrew Amlong, the program manager. Yes, actually, I added some conditions to the conditions of approval based on those letters. An initial letter was sent in, it was rescinded because they wanted to take a step and run it by further staff and have a more comprehensive comment for us. And with their comment came a few requests, which have been added to the conditions. I can read them here. I had printed out the conditions, but not on legal size paper, 8.5 by 11, so they were cut off. So I have it here on my phone. In section F, conditions 9 through 11, we have 9, the shared access easement between the project and the Benson Ridge facility located at 7620 State Highway 29 on assessor parcel number 007-030-21 and 007-029-06 shall not be used for the placement or storage of chemicals, hazardous materials, or other products used for cultivation and cannabis activities. Condition 10, within 90 days of approval, the applicant shall submit a plan to be prepared, to be in place, and to be ready to implement in the event of a spill or release of chemicals within the shared access easement area or any other area which may affect the Benson Ridge facility, as described by the Department of Toxic Substances Control. Controls for runoff that may include various pollutants and controls for the volume and rate of runoff within the access easement area and elsewhere to prevent any impacts to the Benson Ridge facility. And that was condition 11. So.
Thank you.
If the applicants are present, if there's no further questions from the commission.
I just have some questions for the applicant.
Okay. If one of you guys would like to come up. So I'll be opening public comment.
My name is Francis Herbert and I represent Pura, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Great, thank you. My biggest concern is about water.
Okay.
I read the hydrology report and it's based on 50 gallons per minute of usage, but we're looking at 13 acres of canopy, correct?
Give or take, yes.
Yeah, what's your spacing on those plants?
It can be, that's going to be subject to, market conditions, for lack of a better term, and what we're actually doing. The property that is under development had 70 acres of vineyard, and we are reducing that to the 13 to 14 acres of canopy for cannabis. So we actually anticipate it will probably use less water than it was previously used on the property.
So you're eliminating all of the vineyard, not just the 15 acres.
Before we even took over the property, a lot of the vineyard areas the vines have reached an age where they would probably need to be ripped out and replaced. I believe it was Noble Vineyards that was running some of that, and they actually have turned off any number of different blocks previous to us even arriving. So our focus is going to be on strictly the cannabis. If we don't have water issues, it's certainly possible in the future that we could, utilize some of those other areas for other agriculture. But as right now, we're just focusing on what's in front of you.
Okay, thank you. My concern is that as I'm sure you're aware, mature vineyards use a lot less water than cannabis does. And I make my evaluation on this number that's actually pretty low because it's based on evapotranspiration rates in counties that have greater humidity than we do. So is very conservative. And when I try and figure out how much water is going to be used, I go by this 6 gallons per plant per day. And 13 acres, if the spacing is 5 by 5, is 1,700 plants. And a lot more water than what the hydrology report is assuming.
We're planning on growing in the ground. And I don't think that the 6 gallons per day is accurate. I think a lot of things with cannabis, like data is being gathered as
Right.
this new agricultural product, like, gets brought into the light, so to speak. So I would anticipate that we would be able to use far less water because we're not going to be doing 6 gallons a day is a lot. So I don't anticipate that actually happening. But I understand the concerns on water. I've lived in Lake County and Mendocino County for the last 25 years. We've been in a drought for the better part of 2 decades with a couple good seasons here and there. So I understand your concerns.
Thank you. I have spoken to people who do grow marijuana or have grown it here for years and years, and they're talking about 17 to 25 gallons per day. So it's a big concern because you're sharing this aquifer with downstream, other uses, ag uses in the area. So that's my major concern. You do have 225 gallons per minute in your well, so you have access to adequate water. But my concern is just about the consumption of it. So
yeah, we don't anticipate. We believe we have adequate water with the pre-existing well.
Yeah.
To cover it, and so we weren't anticipating. But I mean, obviously, water use is a concern that is going to be ongoing. I'm not exactly sure how to answer your question and completely mitigate your concerns, to be frank. But
well, I think that I just want to voice the concern that these hydrology reports we're seeing are not very realistic, because this one in particular was about, I think they were suggesting 50 gallons per minute of consumption. And when I crunched the numbers, it came out to 153. So,
I mean, there's an aspect certainly too, where because we don't have, decades of data in cannabis agriculture, you could talk to different cannabis cultivators and probably get wildly divergent usage rates on things. And I think the only thing that's going to cure that is time, as people get to see what the actual data is from farm to farm. I also think that when it comes down to it, that when you grow and cultivate in the ground, a lot of people, when they were waiting for, say, their multi-use permit to come through, they were forced to grow above ground in pots and things of that nature that dry out much quicker and use a lot more water because they weren't able to disturb the ground until they got their MUP. But in our case, we feel that by cultivating in the ground, we're going to be able to get away with a lot less water use, because the ground isn't going to evaporate nearly as much, say, as a whole bunch of 100-gallon pots or a whole bunch of above ground agriculture.
Right.
And beyond that, I'm not trying to be inaccurate or anything like that. I just don't know how to. I think there are wildly divergent numbers on what use is.
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard to make it.
And all of you, every county is grappling with, what does this actually mean? Is this correct? All that type of stuff. So I fully understand it. I just wish I could be a little bit more specific, other than to say, I think our numbers are accurate, so.
That's my only question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could you speak on the refrigeration storage a little bit more?
Sure. One of the big uses for cannabis is for extraction. And one of the ways to preserve just like in lots of other agriculture, one of the ways to preserve the quality of the product is to freeze it when it comes out of the field, and in order to prevent degradation. And so what they were speaking of during the presentation was, rather than us, some of the storage on site allows us, when it comes time to harvest, to load that and then make sure that when we're filling up, we can arrange for those things to be trucked off site and new ones to be brought on during the normal business hours, having it be well planned, not having a bunch of coming and going, but having it be much more infrequent as to when the containers would need to be moved on or off site, or trucks would need to come to unload those and load them.
And how many containers was that?
How many containers was it? Off the top of my head, I will defer. Maybe
It was 14 containers.
yeah,
14.
one for each license.
Okay, 14
You know.
containers. And I see here on the green sheet that we got that it says that is going to be powered by PG&E,
Yeah.
and that no portable generators are proposed. Like, what is your plan for a power outage or any sort of emergency that may happen due to the fact that you're going to have your product frozen? And
That
something
would be,
happens?
that would be a concern. You know, the plan is there is a PG&E power drop. If you look at the plan, extremely close to where we would be keeping those. So the ideal is to obviously run it off PG&E power, which wouldn't cause any emissions. Certainly, as the project develops, there could be a, you know, you're right in the sense that there could be a desire or a need for possibly a backup generator in case of emergency. I would like to say that the time frame of that is that you would only need that during the, you know, the say like 2 to 4 to 5 weeks of harvest time a year. So even if that disaster was to happen, it would be very minimal in terms of if it was needed. And if it's not approved, then we have risk. And, you know, we just have to hope that there's not a big power outage right when we don't need one.
I think you've brought up.
Just to note, generator use is permitted in emergency situations. You have to provide, you know, the information about what that emergency is, but you're not prohibited from having generators on site.
Right. So we wouldn't need it for any of our daily use for the entire growing season. The only time the freezers would be in use would be during harvest.
Right.
And then if we had honestly, if we had a power outage, I think what we would be doing is arranging for trucking to take those freezer units off site so they could be powered elsewhere. That would be the first, you know, most ideal situation.
Thank you.
I think that you brought up a really interesting issue about electricity consumption. I don't know anything about the numbers on that, but I wouldn't suggest that we make it a condition of approval, but I would like to suggest that you consider installing a photovoltaic system with maybe some batteries that might be a little more secure.
That's something we could look into. I mean, obviously, like as far as like cultivation, for the most part, you know, it doesn't require an enormous amount of energy by any means.
Right.
There's some county requirements, you know, for Lake County, I believe, that require, you know, video, you know, in terms of and all that. So, but we do have dedicated PG&E power. We do have a dedicated drop and a meter right off the site proposed. So our plan is to use you know, PG&E power that doesn't create any emissions on site.
Yeah, you could probably pay for it, you know, a photovoltaic system in just a couple of years by installing. You know,
I would imagine so.
Just a suggestion.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? No. No. Okay. Van, would you like me to write my name on this thing?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much.
And I will be closing. Actually, can we check the Zoom if there's any hands raised?
Mr. Chair, can I make one clarification as well?
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that access is not through Wilkinson Road, even though that's the address. Wilkinson Road travels through another property. So the access actually comes off of the driveway on Highway 29, and it has been approved by Caltrans and reviewed.
We don't ever plan on using the Wilkinson Road access.
So we'll be closing public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion or motion.
My only concern at this point is proximity to the town of Kelseyville. It's about a mile as the crow flies from my crude measurements. I'm not sure anything, if that's relevant or not in this case, but I just thought I'd express that.
I could speak to that. When we circulated the initial study, we did not receive Any comments in opposition from anyone in the community? The actual site of the vineyards is on the foothills of Mount Canocta, just north of Highway 29, due north of where Bottle Rock Road hits Highway 29. We did receive one phone call from the residents that are right at the intersection of Bottle Rock Road and Highway 29, and they were concerned about the access to the property because their access, the two, relatively nice houses that are right there, does have access further up the hill. And we were able to confirm with them that the access for this project was about 1.3 miles east of their access. So the same easement that the Benson facility shares. So,
Right. My concern would be about odors.
Odors, we also ran this project by with the Department of Agriculture because of its proximity and closeness to the farmland protection zone. But they reviewed it and had no concerns. It's really fairly well isolated. It's one of those projects, the location, you kind of have to go on site to see it, to know that it's there. I think the distance and the elevation distance, not just, 1 mile distance from the town, but it's also quite further up the hill. So I don't expect any negative impacts on any surrounding community members. So
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking at the topo map now and I see what you're talking about. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission find that the mitigated negative declaration IS 20-61 prepared for Pura Vineyards, Inc. for the property located at 6700, 6800, 6900 Wilkinson Road, Kelseyville, and further described in this motion will not have a significant effect on the environment, and therefore a determination of a mitigated negative declaration with the accompanying mitigation monitoring and reporting program, MMRP, shall be approved with the findings listed in the staff report dated September 22nd, 2022.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed?
I further move that the Planning Commission find that the major use permit UP 20-61 applied for by Pura Vineyards, Inc. for the property located at 6700, 6800, and 6900 Wilkinson Road, Kelseyville, and further described in this motion, does meet the requirements of section 51.4 and article 27, section 1, subsection AT, IIIG, and III of the Lake County zoning ordinance with the amended site plan, and the major use permit be granted subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated September 22, 2022.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Motion passes unanimously.
Note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7-day calendar day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fees must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th calendar day following the Commission's final determination. And with that, we will be going towards the department update.
Thank you. Just had a celebratory announcement. The Board of Supervisors approved our budget yesterday, so we'll be sticking around for another year. Also, I am extremely sorry that I didn't get that training information out to you. I just wrote a note that I will get that today sent out to you so you can consider the options for the trainings in mid-October. Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned at 10:28.
Thank you.